I want to try and keep your attention in a certain way. Consider those kinds of picturizations that we have used before, that life is going on. We used to sometimes refer to it as the city, but life is going on down here in this sort of valley. It's got everything that life needs: institutions, peoples, rivers, pollution, people against pollution, people in favor of pollution, churches, synagogues, A&P, Safeways, two-lane highways. It's everything down here. And then consider that this kind of activity, that in a non-threatening way, you could look at as being a kind of attempted revolution, as a kind of intellectual, at least, subversive activity. And what we were discussing in specific, to which I want to redirect your attention, was the fact that if we were talking about nothing more than material external warfare, and in all good warfare you have got to have both sides attempting to get new information on their opposition so as to make efficiency the key word. All generals and even some lieutenants understand efficiency. And so you would have people out attempting to do the big R thing, reconnoiter. And if we were still talking about the ordinary material world of warfare, and let's assume that we've got at least, since I said it was a valley, then there's got to be some inclines on at least one side of it. And so some person is going out to attempt to reconnoiter. They climb down the hill a little bit to get a good view. And it was pointed out, still, if we were talking about ordinary material, everyday warfare, that someone attempting to spy is not going to give their position away. And now, may I remind you to try henceforth not only to keep one eye upon this kind of material picturization of the lay of the land, which you can look at as being the internal lay of one's nervous system, and look at the kind of relationship of attempting to reconnoiter, to look down and pick up information to which you should not be privy, and what might be going on, and then with the other eye realize that we are not in any manner talking about warfare. We're not even talking about external events. It just so happens, fortuitously, coincidentally enough, what I had a certain inclination to talk about tonight, woe and be damned, I realized that same sort of thing again. Seemed like night after night, this same thing is true out there. I mean, I've read pieces of several books in the past. I hadn't wasted my whole life, and I know that what I'm saying kind of fits in with the ordinary scheme of things. I don't know when these coincidences will run out. So, here we go again. And you recall we were also talking, I'll get back into it, but about that a man attempting to reconnoiter, if he's going to take in new information, of course, he should not be giving out any information about himself. That if we were talking about the one eye of looking at this as being actual, material, physical warfare, the spy, a man going to all the trouble to creep from the enemy camp, go down the hill, climb through the bushes, cut himself up, and gets in a position to look down and see what's going on, he is not then going to stand up and holler down to the valley, I made it, I'm up here. Certainly not. Now if you try and look with the other eye and realize that this is actually, the origins of this is inside the human nervous system, and it just coincidentally lends itself to ordinary discussions of what goes on, has gone on, still goes on out here, that being out here. Then internally, a person would not be giving out information about themselves. They would not be locating their position. And the way in which you locate your position in the nervous system level is how? Well, first off, the sentence has got to contain a reference to who? Not John Blake, not even William Blake, not John Philip Blake Sousa. You got to say, I hate opera. I hate being a spy. I hate being up on a hill. I hate you people being down there. If you're going to make subversive investigations, if you're going to pick up new information, you cannot give out information about yourself. Now, after only 7 minutes, we're up to speed, right? Running just as fast as our little neural feet will travel. Okay. If we were talking about, let's start off and we'll call it the right eye, that we're talking about what seems to be actual, material, external warfare. If they had drafted Elmer Fudd to be a spy and sent him down, and he was dumb enough to give his position away up here on the hill looking down on his, quote, enemy. Now remember, we're talking about a whole city down there, civilization, life itself. They cannot get up and move. That would not be efficient. So, if this dumb spy gives himself away, what would be the most efficient thing for them to do? I'll answer. Well, let's they got no way to start with. They would cease once they realize he's right there. Then, through the use of trigonometry, if not common sense, they could figure what his best views were down into the city, into ordinary life. And so the general area in which he would have a good view, they would cease to engage in any important maneuvers. Would they not? It would be quite easy, whatever's going on, he's looking down there, and they can tell that he can only see sort of in this general, they blocked off some coordinates and said, well, he can only get a good view right here. They would begin to do rather meaningless, just routine stuff, right? That would be the most efficient, since you cannot pick up life and move it to another galaxy. You cannot pick up life and move it to another life. It would be easier once you've got somebody located to only let them see that which is of no consequence. Now, if you consider this back to the other eye that we're talking about, as we should be, the workings of the nervous system inside of one man, then you'd have to consider this, that life only ordinarily lets people see, or if you prefer, ordinary people's intellect only gets shown. Those kinds of activities that are obvious, meaningless, the first stories. Not only that there you are trying to spy, that you might think. But this holds true for ordinary people. They just don't look at it this way. But even those who think, well, I am up to something. I'm going to figure out what's going on. They might be attempting to do it religiously, through some sort of would-be transcendental activity, meditation, drugs. What they believe is, I am getting to the point to make some sort of unusual observations about life. But if you give your position away, now jump back and try to use both of these eyes, in the same way that an enemy, once aware of your position up there attempting to spy, the most efficient thing to do, realizing that you only got a limited view, which certainly men only have a limited view. They do when you're speaking about the actual visible sight within inside the electromagnetic spectrum, and to do with where someone is placed in the 3D grid of things, that the man sitting up there on the hill could only see certain areas of this huge city, the enemy camp. Then internally, of course, as you already know, how much does an ordinary man see? Let's not go into that and be insulting. All you got to do, you don't have to play, what is association? You holler out anything. Religion, and a man's got a view immediately. Politics, sex, food, cars. I mean, he's got a view just like that. And it's not just quickness of view, clarity of view. Sometimes known as pinpoints of view. Let's play association. Let's play word association. Sir, madam, says life to your brain, or me, if I was that hard up for a hobby. Religion, crap. Sex, overrated. Food, chocolate. The nervous system has a very precise, limited, immediate view. Now, once life understands, which, since it was your mater and pater, we will assume it understands, that people internally are peeking at it, since it told you to peek. Then if it has something it does not want you to see, once it needs people to peek, because that is part of being a conduit and a transformer of energy, is to look. And so since there are things that you got no business seeing that would simply interfere, it's useless, it would distract you, It's not needed to be seen yet. What is the most efficient way to do things? I suggest again to you, it is to simply, since it realizes that all spies, all people, have a very, very, did I say very, very limited view from their position. Once it knows your position, we'll get a little more into that, but you already know. As long as you give away your position and it knows where it is, then it can handle it. Because then it only lets you see. It only shows you that which is of no consequence. Not only does it do that, but it also allows you, let's put it that way, it allows you to believe otherwise. It allows you to believe that what you are seeing is of real significance. And I might point out, life being the great just machine that it is, that the more that people believe ordinarily that they are engaged in some sort of unusual observations, the more life lets them believe that they are. Well, all right, some of you laugh, the rest of you do understand, if people out taking drugs or people out believe that they're engaged in some sort of mystical rituals from some bygone religion or whatever, that believe that they are up to something, but they're having to, in some way, change the brain chemistry of themselves or attempt to through ways that are beyond their control, that they cannot start and finish it and take care of the second act anytime they want to. So whatever means they're using, the more ordinary people believe that they are engaged in some unusual form of peeping and hiding. See, it wasn't just little Richard was involved with that. But more that people believe, I am beginning to look up under life's own skirts. I am getting so drugged out, I am getting so involved with self-help or self-hypnosis or chanting. Sometimes my brain goes into such whirling dances that I believe I'm about to see things that even I have no idea what they are. The more that somebody is wired and primed to believe that, then the more life lets them believe, allows them to believe, all right, makes them believe, that what they're seeing, that is, which is obvious, meaningless, first story, of no consequence, but the more they are made to believe that, this is extraordinary. Well, hence the great frustration that throughout thousands of years to read books that are supposedly of an occult, metaphysical, transcendental nature, the people not only try to tell you what it was they saw, which always amounts to God is love. That's about it. It may take 459 pages, and they may say it took them 27 years of taking drugs and meditating, but it comes out that God is love, or life is love. Anyway, it comes out something that, no offense to them, but may I say, is normally fairly routine. May I say that? So they spend, let us say, 459 pages telling you that. And then they say, stay tuned, Volume 2 will be out next year. And Volume 2 is to tell you that, now I know that some of that sounded pretty plain, but it's of great significance. Is that or is that not it? And it's not just ordinary people. It is back into the area of corporate mysticism. It's organized religions. The religions historically can be looked at from certain views after the fact, and social commentators, parts of life's body, say that this was some major break, that Buddhism was a huge split from Hinduism, taking that belief system as being a religion, or that Christianity, that whatever this guy Jesus said was a quantum leap from established Judaism. They can say that, but if you look back, is there anything shocking in any religion? Yours, a foreign religion, you look at it and they're all the same. And you don't have to stop at that, don't worry about they're all the same. You look at it and whatever it is, they're basic tenets. The heart of any belief system is always pretty obvious. You read it and go, yeah. Either that or you're absolutely, if it was exotic enough, that is far enough from your own wiring system, you could believe that it was the work of the anti-gods. You could believe that everything about this is absolutely untrue, which is the same thing. That is, it's obviously untrue. You don't have to think about it. And so what you're left with are ordinary people. I didn't mean to lose so many of you. Ordinary people that believe they're engaged in some real spying mission, that they believe that their purpose in life or their interest in life is really to, in some way, weasel into some secret place to figure out what's going on, the more ordinary people believe that, the more that they take the obvious and the meaningless to be. Hey, I finally was able to break my own limit, and I stayed up 11 days in a row. Thank God for amphetamines, but I did it. And I kept drawing these funny things on my forehead, those things, and then try to look at it. And suddenly on the 11th night, it was a major breakthrough, and I realized I saw into the depths of the universe. Yeah, and what was it? I realized that we're all the same. Which I'm sure was an interesting hobby for the fellow, but it's always the obvious. Always the meaningless. That is all life lets people see. If you have given your position away. Does anyone recall that several times around here you have heard it mentioned that to be a revolutionist, to be able to use your own intellect over in new areas in ways that are not ordinarily operational, you should not let yourself know what you're doing. Now, would you care to expand that? Not only should you not let yourself know what you're doing, you should not let life know what you're doing. Now, forget philosophical things that it's got to know. The energy is there that, yeah, it's got to know, but if you think it can keep up with every Tom, Dick, and Mary, then you really consider that you are a super important Mary, Dick, or Tom. You cannot let life know what you're doing. Now, on what basis do I say that? All right. It's giving your position away. Every time you holler out, every time you speak up, every time you say, I cannot abide opera, and especially operas about broccoli. Hate them. Then life knows where you are. Now, if there is anything behind the words opera and broccoli that might give some secret information, who knows? You're done for. You'll never see it. Because every time you look around, all you'll see, oh yeah, same thing. They're down there shuffling broccoli around. And so you take no note of it. That's of no importance. You know that already, right? Yeah, it's obvious. And opera. Well, they're staging some opera over there close to the broccoli fields. So you can take a nap. There's nothing going on. And then you wake up and you spy again. And it's the same stuff day after day. They're either shuffling opera around or they're moving around broccoli. And a few other things. I'm not saying that your field of ordinary intellectual interest is limited to simply opera and broccoli. Certainly not. Some of you probably have 4 or 5 more areas that you think about. Of course, that's not true. That's beyond a cheap laugh, because no one has 4 or 5 in ordinary levels, even up there on the hillside trying to peek and hide. No one has 4 or 5 areas of interest. You know that. Everybody only has one area of interest. That is, ordinary people apparently are talking. You know, 2 people are talking, and maybe one guy is telling this other fellow about, well, I hate opera, and they talk about that a while, and he says, I hate broccoli. And then he says, well, wait a minute, I shouldn't put it that way. I shouldn't keep talking about myself. Let's talk about something different. So he turns to the other guy and says, tell me this, what do you think about the things I hate? Now, if you didn't follow that, the kind of guy that by himself realized he keeps saying, I hate opera and I hate broccoli. And you think, well, I should expand my horizon. So he goes in the kitchen, he opens the icebox, and he takes out some broccoli, and he says, hey, what do you think of me? What do you think of my attitude toward you? Did everybody follow that? In other words, what started off with my little faux sarcasm about, well, I'm sure that all of you have more than 2 areas of interest. Some of you have 4 or 5. That's not it. Because ordinarily people do not have 4 or 5. They do not have 2. They have 1. Their interest is themselves. It's supposed to be. Not in some anti-spiritual way. That is the way things are wired up, that is the center of where things seem to be broadcast and received in your own nervous system. It's me. What else is there to know about? What else is there of any consequence? What I want to know is not only me. Now, I'm better than some kind of real parochial-minded person, because I am interested in more universal, more international, more philosophical things. People will say that. But are they? If an ordinary man's intellect, even one at the ordinary level, would appear to be sophisticated and educated, that might say what I had just quoted, if his nervous system would be grabbed like a mongoose on a snake and you shake it back here right behind his little cortex a little bit and go and say, well, be a little more precise. Don't say that you're interested in other things. The more precise, I'm going to put it in words and it makes no sense. He'd go, oh, what you mean is I'm interested in what I think. I think I'm going to think about them. You follow? It's not that ordinary intellects are wired up that, yes, I'm interested in more sophisticated areas. I'm interested in areas outside my own ordinary experience. But if they could be more precise, they'd say, I'm interested in what I'll think about them. Which is a foregone conclusion, because the only thing life's going to let you see once you've given your position away, you're going to look down, and if you think, well, I'm going to try and look at a new area. And so you're, in some way, if you through drugs or through some kind of trickery up there on the hill, you could pull your vision around and kind of look at a new area. I'll be down if you wouldn't find out it was mainly broccoli. Again. The only thing life's going to allow is for you to see that which is meaningless, if you let it know where you are. And don't worry about that life knows where everybody is. Life knows everybody's inside the universe, if you want to put it that way, or life knows everybody's inside of it. But you got no business hollering, hey, here I am. Not if you're going to try to do something extraordinary. Because if you holler, hey, here I am, then I can tell you what you're going to see. Of course, if you had the heart for it, you could tell yourself what you're going to see. What you're going to see is, hey, I've already seen it. See if we can expand a little bit. If I had ever told, assuming I had one, my own new creation legend or myth, let me expand some of that and give you a variation. Instead of, to use one that's probably the better known to you people, taking a look at you, and one of the better known Western creation myths, real early, after the gods created man, real early on, man was charged somewhat like this. He was told, name everything, then go forth, be fruitful, and multiply the race. That's kind of a little summary. If I had come up and admitted a new creation myth, may I suggest that I could have made it more current and made it more exact. And it would have gone more like this, that they would, the gods, the forces of creation would have said, name all the nouns and the verbs, as everything that moves and everything that doesn't move, and then you move out, go out and be fruitful and multiply the species of talk. Not the race of man. The gods didn't have to tell people, hey, go out and as fast as you can develop the internal combustion engine so you can develop Chevrolets and Fords and have back seats and everybody do it and the race multiplies. The gods did not have to tell people to go out and engage in, you know what? Sex. I suggest it would have been much more precise right now that the forces says, well, again, coming from the Western tradition religiously, that the gods sort of say this, that, hey, in the beginning, I gave you the word. I gave you the first word. It's like the primary word. But now it's you people, you go forth and you multiply it. That is, you now turn it into secondary activities. I gave you the one word, we got it going. But now you have got to go out and multiply it. You got to be fruitful. But forget all this, that is it was necessary, and some people still use it, but you got to realize that is pretty simplistic down any sort of line of the sophistication of what people should be doing or what the gods would have to tell people. You got to admit that's pretty crude people, that's pretty crude religion, pretty simplistic that the gods had created these people and then had to tell them, look, do it. And maybe had to show them a book, had to come up with Masters and Johnson or something and say, here's the pictures, do it. Now you're talking about I got to suggest to you that the gods that did that created creatures, and then they couldn't figure out how to create other little creatures, and they had to tell them. You know, he had to say, go forth and multiply. I don't know. Are you sure you won't be part of that kind of race? That your ancestors had to be told to do it, to engage in that great American and worldwide pastime. I suggest the more sophisticated, the more up to date, the more cogent of that kind of directive would be. He said, go out, be fruitful, multiply the race of talk. Not of man, of talk. What else can man actually multiply that no one else can? Beavers can create beavers. They don't need somebody saying, can you look at these books, these pictures by Beavers and Johnson? You know, I got some dirty beaver pictures here, some postcards. Beavers can create beavers, oak trees can do oak trees, and you understand gravel can produce gravel, and shoes in the road can produce their own progeny. Talk can only be produced by one species, man. And what is more important than talk on this planet now? You can think about it if you want to. What is more important? And any time that your own nervous system and brain might drag you along thinking, well, that's may sort of be stimulating there for a second, but there are things more important than talk. The economy. There'd be an economy without talk? Well, the stock market specifically. There'd be a stock market without talk. Anything you come up with, you can pursue it on your own. All of this is still within the framework of realizing that man's life is arranged in such a way that he is exchanging energies. He is exchanging continually information. He is obviously exchanging talk. A little more specifically, men are continually exchanging names, business cards, and locations. Continually. It is now one of the forms. It is one of the continuing forms of energy exchange verbally. Is name and location. Of course, business card I meant not only materially but metaphorically. But people are exchanging location, and location begins to drift into one's name. You just stand around. Cocktail hour. Around the coffee machine. Any place. Business. Just ordinary in the middle of life's middle class, everyday workplace, marketplace, bell curve. And you hear people identifying their location, giving their coordinates. I'm shorting some IBM stock. I don't know. This quarter I'm sort of down on AT&T. Now this sounds sophisticated. Sounds like everyday stuff. But they might as well be hollering, I hate okra. They might as well be hollering, hey, I'm up here, I'm right here. It is to establish your coordinates in the 3D world. It is to establish your coordinates inside of your own 3D world of here I am. Since you are nobody, then how do you know who you are? Well, I say who I am. I establish my position. I'm the kind of guy that I'll go along with some of the blue chip stocks, and I don't mind riding out and taking a reasonable 17 to 20% return. But every year or so, I'll drop things. As long range, be the health, obviously, of AT&T, even after the breakup. But sometimes, I don't know, I just kind of feel risky. And I'll just dump all my AT&T and I'll jump into something like Alabama Bell just to see what happens. Who knows? I'm a gambler at heart. All of that's just everyday, innocuous talk, doing no one any harm. But for someone attempting to come up with any new information, if you're going to give your coordinates away, if you're going to give your position away, now forget other people. That's just the easiest way to describe it. You're giving it away And those of you that can hear, that should be the end of the sentence, at least with a comma. You're giving your position away. Now, if that doesn't make enough sense to some of you right now, you're giving your position away to life. It is not, you might note also, it is not part of the routine scheme of things for people to withhold information. It is not. Hence, you might note in all of you the almost uncontrollable urge to respond to any sort of verbal information exchange just aimed in your general direction. I mean, just down the city, they just take a blunderbuss, 4 or 5 shotguns, and they just kind of shoot it up the hill in your general direction, and you holler something like, the market's going down, and you'll stand up and you go, I can understand why a man might have such an opinion, but I personally believe that given we're no more than a year and a half now into the new administration in Washington, I personally believe blah, blah, blah. Do you understand? All they got to do in the city, that is all life through the neural, physical, electrical activity running through its own trunk and into individual nervous system, all they've got to do is just shoot a shotgun just in the general direction up the hill at you, and you think you're hiding, and it just kind of shoots up there and it hollers, Islam is the religion of the future. AT&T is the stock of the future. Opera is the only art. It just shoots just in general up there, and suddenly you have this uncontrollable urge to stand up and to holler, wait a minute, I'm not sure I agree to that. And you may have a great argument. It may impress this little girl you got sitting there in the back seat with you. It may impress you. But you realize what you've done? It's just in general. But consider yourself. All of you know some about this. It is almost an irresistible urge to respond to people. I've even tried to get you to see, taken up to some real up-to-date in this age of information, as they want to call it out there now. You can be walking through a mall, minding your own business, and a stranger, perhaps not even all of that a savory-looking stranger, suddenly pop out behind a fern with a clipboard and say, may I ask you a very personal and perhaps potentially embarrassing question? And ordinary people go, well, sure. Do you have a cameraman with you? Or? Just sure. Or you can go to your mailbox and there's a card addressed to resident. And it says, would you like to be on the Fred Duck Slop show tomorrow and be interviewed? You know, call this number. Does anybody want to take any kind of bet about the number of people who wouldn't call and say, yeah, I'll be on there? How many people would even say, what's the subject? What do you want to ask? They don't care. And it's not just some kind of stupidity, and it's not the power of television and all that. That's just a great example now, because it's always been true. If you recall, well, you could take it as an experiment. You could go out and try not to talk as much. And all of you should already know that it is hard. You could say, well, I forgot. You could say all kinds of stuff. Forget any kind of psychological explanation. Things are wired up in such a way that it is not part of the natural schematic for a person to withhold information. And that's all you are withholding. You're withholding energy, but it's information. If you do not establish, if you don't holler, hey, here I am, right over here. That is, whatever people are talking about, people you know around the water cooler, at work, or a stranger, your family, that the subject comes up of opera, TV, broccoli, whatever it is, it's almost impossible for there to be a lull. And they look at you, which is just what I mean by just kind of a general firing in your direction. It don't have to be specific. I mean, if it had to be specific, how often do people look at you dead in the face and say, tell me the truth, now don't lie, what do you think about opera? What do you think of the stock market? What do you think of the economy? No, you just never thought about it. All you got to do is there you stand and laugh. You know, like a freeway, and it's just cars go by and you just hear little sketches of something. It sounds like somebody mentioned opera. They just got to fire in your general direction. You're standing at the water cooler and there are 8 or 10 people, and they're talking about the stock market. And it gets a lull, and everybody takes a sip of their water, looking at their watches, how much time to lunch. And maybe just 1 or 2 of them kind of look at you, just in general. Maybe they just look past you and you go, God, I hate opera. It's just almost uncontrollable because it is unnatural to withhold information. You're supposed to be continually, if there is the least apparent desire for life, to have information, that is energy exchange through you at that time. Look at it as being not only transformed, but a first-class scientific conduit. Light, heat, energy of all kinds, including talk. That is what you're here for. To pass it along and to put some kind of spin on it, most often, to transform it in some way. And it is not natural to withhold that. That's not what you're here for. Life did not create a bunch of people to stand around and say, well, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not even going to comment on it. I'm not even going to play like I know what they... I'm not... Just for my own reasons, just to be contrary. As revolutionists in Mississippi would like to say. Just to be irritable. It is not wired up that way. It's almost impossible not to respond. It is almost impossible not to give away your location. That's the way it is. It is almost as though life is continually checking on everyone. That is not the purpose of having people here, is to check on you. But do you understand? At least it knows that everything's all right. As long as everything is as it was a second ago. Just as you know you're healthy right now, you don't have to, as people would say, consciously start doing all this and check your... You can just, if you think about it right this second, if I said, how's everyone's health? Just for a second. Maybe you got a sore toe, maybe you got a toothache, maybe you got nothing going on. But if there is something going on, you're aware of it, but if there's nothing going on, it's like, well, right now, so far, so good. Now, nothing in particular. I feel about like I did most of the time. I feel about as good as I always feel. Then you just forget about it. Then we go into something else. But it's almost as though all of your organs, all of your cells, all of your molecules sort of identify themselves that, yeah, we're here, everything's all right, nothing to report. But we're here, we're on the job. The liver's going, heart's going, breathing, I can see, I can hear. As long as they do that, then they only get the information. That is, they only get the energy pertinent to them. You could look upon cancer of all kinds, not just the diagnosable clinical definition, but you could look at all anomalies in the human organism as being a kind of, obviously in the individual's case, unprofitable, passing of the proper energies, that they are not locating their coordinates in a proper way. They are in fact getting perhaps out of their proper position. But even if they're not out of the proper position, they're not giving back the right identifications of here I am. That is what, in a sense, sickness is, illness is. But as long as you will identify your position, as long as you will willfully, freely, I guess you can strike willfully, those of you getting good. As long as you freely give your position. Here I am. I hate opera. I love truth and goodness, and I hate evilness. Ooh, I hate it. Next to, I don't know, broccoli, I probably hate evilness. You can count. If you're taking a petition against broccoli or evilness, put me down. You're all right. You are okay. But I can tell you what you're going to see the rest of your life. You're going to see evilness, and of course its partner, goodness. You're going to see broccoli, and as true in the quantum world, you're going to see anti-broccoli. Except in that case, they do not necessarily cancel one another out. Because you can still find broccoli even if you don't believe in it. Something else about known positions. We all heard a little about this a few tapings back. But consider, from the area of my ad hoc descriptions of there being local realities, that is, your individual position, and then everyone has their own, and then whatever the universal would be, at the very least, if you want to play 3D cerebral mathematics, it would be the simultaneous combination of everyone's local reality. It's more than that, but that would be the universal. But from these local positions, from the local observations, where people are experiencing reality at that local coordinate that they identify by saying, here I am, here's what I believe, here's what I think, here's what I know. There is something specifically occurs. They observe what could be closer to universals, and then they begin to take them as being universals when it is no more and cannot escape any more than you could look at as being a black hole of the intellect. They cannot escape the hold of the local reality, of the coordinates of their own position. And it goes like this, these kind of examples. And you've all heard this, but I'm going to try to get you to see something off at least at a very sharp angle. Guy picks up his breakfast at some drive-in place where he stops almost every morning. Gets out there at the job site. Got a few minutes before they start work, and he opens up the bag and he takes it out and he says, Jesus, Holy Mother. He feels of it. My little egg sandwich, the eggs are cold. Every morning and then he opens the coffee. Jesus. They left the cream out again. And he tells somebody, if they're listening to him, the guy that rides with him every morning, he said, can you believe these people? What is it, 5 days a week? I tell them, would you please, don't give me those eggs that have been laying over there cold. Don't you have something you just fried up? And they go, yeah, they're over here. Would you do that? And my coffee, remember, it's cream in the coffee. Oh yeah, we know you. And here it is again. All right. What they're also saying, and forget about them, your own nervous system, they're saying, my eggs are cold again, the coffee's without cream. Modern civilization is disintegrating. I will truly hope that none of you are simplistic enough to think that you are laughing at somebody else who would be mad about cold eggs. We're talking about the nature of your own nervous system under ordinary conditions, under local conditions. That is the feel. It is to take the local experience. And that is no exaggeration at all. Every one of you have done things that bad or worse. You don't look at it that way. And you do not, of course, have to say the man out there, the guy fixing to lay brick in a minute as soon as he either eats or tosses away his cold egg sandwich. The feel is, if I cannot drive up, I mean, we've been at this spot, how long, Hubert? And Hubert says, my name's Buford, but anyway. And he says, how long have we been working on this project over here? And he said, I don't know, 2 months. All right, 2 months. We work 5 days a week at least. Sometimes part of Saturday, but 5 days a week, we have been stopping at that same place, hadn't we? You know, Buford, yeah. And I put up the window, and what I order every day, the same thing at night. Yeah. And how often do they get my coffee wrong? 4 days out of 5, probably. How many days have we been? What the man is saying, and it is serious business. It is a piece of necessary energy. He's not making a mistake. But he is saying much more. That is the energy that he is transforming. He's putting his own local spin on it. He's a conduit. He's passing along to Hubert or to Buford. Other people, he's passing along up here to himself. He's passing along in his memory to the girl or whoever working at the window there every morning, the cook. Life. It begins to be, and this happens for those of you that are just absolutely intent on staying ordinary, give you something to look forward to. Those of you there may be still just 20 or 30. If you go ahead and you're able to persevere and stay ordinary, you don't have to work at this. The older you get down at local time, the more cold eggs signifies. And you won't be laughing. Look around at your mother or father, your old crazy Uncle Fred. The older you get, it's no longer a discussion. It's no longer sarcasm. There's not a chuckle. Cold eggs show. They show much more than the growing crime rate in your neighborhood over cocaine deals gone awry. Cold eggs. That is my cold eggs. Day after day. This is the downfall. There's no doubt. Things are absolutely going to hell. Because things were not like this when I was growing up. All right. Now everybody's supposed to know that. Now let me take it to the right angle. It's true. Things were not like that when that guy was growing up. Do any of you know that? Do I have to stop with that? I'm not going to. It's true and it's not true. But start here. It is a fact. Whatever it is. Just take my example, but any other example. Down there, an ordinary person, down at city level, saying, wait a minute. The kind of service I get at my bank now, they act like they're doing me a favor. They got my money. They're making a profit off of me. Let me tell you what, son. When I was growing up, the banker, he wasn't everybody's friend, I know. But at least they treated you when you came in. They didn't treat you like if you came in and said, what time is it? They added $1 to your bill that month. If you ask them for an envelope to put the money in, that after they cash your check and charge you $5, you look down later the next month in your statement, there's a 10-cent charge for the envelope. Son, when I was growing up, things weren't that way. It is completely out of hand, and what they're saying is life is slowly falling apart. And the older I get, the faster it falls apart. That is a fact. Now, the angle. Because I'll assume that all of you, we've been through this from many different ways, and I assume that all of you by now have some touch of that. Of course, a whole bunch of you folks are old enough now that you know, this is not theory. You hear your old mother and father down in your own nervous system right where they have always been saying, and you don't even have to say it verbally, but its life is falling apart. Society itself is disintegrating. When it's to the point that you drive in, you're willing to pay your money. They got signs saying how much the sandwich is, how much coffee is. I work for a living. I get paid by the hour, and I look there, and I'm prepared to pay them. And I look dead in that little box, that little clown's face. And I say, I want coffee. I want coffee with cream. And they go, do you hear me? I want cream in my coffee. You get up to the window and you even say, all right, and they hand you the bag and you say, this is the coffee with cream. Right. And it's not. That is life falling apart. But now, so everybody will assume knows that. It is inescapable. If you lived an ordinary life, if your own nervous system ages, blossoms, begins to wilt, at the proper tempo for you, life falls apart. Any theoretical idea that the older people get, they should become wise and all that, all you got to do is be able to get outside of some kind of local view, and you know that's not true. People become more and more sore-headed, whether they say it out loud or not, because as far as they can feel, as far as they can see, life is disintegrating, and the older they get, the faster it happens. Now the off at an angle. That's true everywhere on the planet. It's true with everybody. What cannot be seen? Even those that, let's assume that all of you who laughed along and smiled, that you know that, boy, there sure is some validity in that to me. And I can see it in other people. Here is what you do not see. It has to be hidden from that group who are dying. That is, the intellect is not expanding, but they are dying organically. The sentient being of the Homo sapien, the individual, is simply dying, getting older. But what cannot be seen, while it is true that over here, if we're taking everybody that this doesn't matter, but just so I can talk about it, we'll say everybody that on the planet that's 50. On one part of the planet. Let's say all of them feel, if we're measuring the belief that life is disintegrating on a scale from 1 to 10, then let's say everybody that's 50 that lives in the United States would feel this disintegrating at a rate that would be 8.3 on the scale. All right, I want you to understand that they're locked into that. That is part of the nervous system. That is part of the birth, the growth, the development, the flowering, and then the dying of their nervous system. It's inescapable. Not only death, but it's inescapable that the energies coming into me and about me are becoming poorer. Life is just going downhill. Things are falling apart. Society itself. That group cannot see that, although it's true, it is true what they see. at a younger part of town, there is some sort of brand new activity developing that is beginning to operate in a manner efficient, fresh, and healthy that's just staggering. But when you're over here in that group, you can't see over there. Think about it a second. It is arranged, if life is disintegrating from your view, where you are, you can never see, and it's of no more importance than your coffee having no cream. It's of no real universal importance. But there is something else going on that if we could wait, if we could wait the failure of restaurants to properly cream one's coffee, if we could wait that, x to the 17th power, then there is something brand new, that is as brand new as far as this group would be concerned, going on that has a new freshness quotient, a new tempo, a new vitality that is equally, at least, weighted at x to the 17th power. And they cannot see it. Wow, a decent example, I guess is the best way I can come up with in the next 6 minutes, is older people's now, let's just stay here with our part of life's body, our part of the world, the computer age. Just walk into any bank or just stand around somewhere and listen to people past a certain age badmouth computers. They're aware they're going on, but their attitude is not that they've been a help. If they're going to give it any notice or discuss it at all, their general attitude is, they can talk about being an improvement all they want to. I can tell you this, banking used to, I walked in and I knew the people at the bank and they said, hello, Mr. Smith, and I'd say hello and we did our business, and that was it. Now, I don't know anybody. I go up and one of these banks I go to down the street now, it's my old bank, there's not even a teller. You go inside and it's a damn machine. It's got a face pointed out there and some kind of voice says, hello, put in your check or whatever it is. And so a grandson might say, well, Gramps, that's the computer age. That's progress. Is that progress to that old man? Because he truly says, he's not wrong, he says, you don't understand progress. I'm telling you, it is now the banking business. Just take one example. My dance with a bank. The whole scenario of banking for me. Of course, people don't always say for me, but that's what they are saying, remember. And then they turned it into universal. It is worse than it ever was. I could used to walk in and cash a check, and it took me all of what? 2 minutes. It took me as long as I could walk up there, and they said, good morning, Mrs. Smith, and I hand it to them, they cash and give me the money, and if I was in a hurry, I was out the door. And now it takes me longer than that to put up with these damn machines. This other group, in this case it seems like I'm talking temporally, the grandson could not show, he could not make the old man see that regardless of you saying, and it be correct from that local view, that it is now more difficult, it is more complicated, your relationship with the banking industry, with the banking activity is disintegrating. There's another way to look that is equally as valid, is it's not. You're making more money on your investments, on the money that stays in there. Nobody ever paid interest on checking accounts when you were growing up, Grandpa. You can find all kinds of things I'm not going into. You people will be good enough. It is equally as true. Of course, from the younger guy's view, from this other view, it is more so. But it is equally as true that the computer age, computers themselves, have in fact benefited the old man. But can he ever see that? Not that he should, not that it's important, not that it's even true, because it's not true. It's just equally true and untrue. It's just a local affair. But he could never see, never, ever, ever see that, my God, I was wrong. I am better off that we now have this whole thing that I was attacking of the banking business now being tied around machines, other than me going in like I foolishly thought was better like in 1938 when I'd walk in and deal with somebody that I knew. You do understand that the nervous system is arranged now, that things have moved in time and space, that the old man could never see that. It cannot be proven, and as a rule, or what I was trying to encourage you to start out with, before I pulled out the example of computers, is there things going on that this one group, it sounds like now I'm talking about generations, but it's not just moving in time, but that's the easiest to explain, but there are things going on that any generation is not even aware of. They may have heard the name, but they do not even take into account that this new thing, perhaps computers, to stay there, that there would be people of a certain age now in a certain wiring system, that even though they've heard the term computers, they would not even be wired up and inclined to go into any sort of negative discussion of computers or to put any sort of blame on it. They just treat it like, well, I've heard about it, but it's almost non-existent. All they know is that life is disintegrating. And somebody said, well, you think computers are doing it? Oh, hell, I don't know. It's people, probably. Just people are no good. People are not like they used to be. We're out of time, and I was hoping that... Never mind what I was hoping. If I told you what I was hoping, you'd know where I was, and you might take a shot at me. Let me leave you with something else. All the times that when I've got to say something verbally and refer to this, and I say stuff about this kind of stuff and the people that's attracted to this and etc. And many times you have heard coming from up here comments like, well, for those of you, it turns out that you are just irreversibly drawn to this, or people that's got to do this. I've said that kind of stuff before. And now's as good a time as any, since we've got, what, a minute and a half. Let me point out, I can be, as always, more precise. Just whether you can hear it. I can be more exact and say that kind of description. I hit it off and on for a long time, and many of you nod along. That, you know, if you get attracted to this or you ever run across it, and it's like, ah, that's it. And it's like, well, you got no choice. You're just addicted to it. That's not true. Contraire, because that kind of description really is, you are talking about ordinary three-dimensional, down in the city, cultism. Because those kind of people that are actually attracted to this kind of stuff, amongst anybody else, any other possibility on this planet, they do have a choice. Because, no, you're not fanatically drawn and held by this. It's only the kind of description I make about, well, people that just have to pursue this. That's really only true down in the valley. In other words, you could look at it. There's one way to know that you are really involved in some kind of revolution is, you don't know where it started, but then you realize that you can't ever finish it. And so whereas they worry about in the ordinary world that people get caught up in some kind of cult or mind control belief system, and they have to forcibly kidnap them, hit them on the head with a Don Ho album or something, and kidnap them, you know, then pull them out of it, and then it may take hours or months, and you have to hypnotize them and, you know, play Christian music, or, you know, make them go through a bar mitzvah, even if they're a Portuguese Presbyterian. And they still look like, maybe they come in and out of it and they want to know, where's the leader? Where's that great cultural cultish group? Anyway, I wanted to point out that even though I've used that for my own reasons, it was kind of like giving me an excuse to go, you know, why in the hell am I attracted to this? It doesn't have a name, I don't know what it is, and I'm not sure. And I'd say things like, well, sort of make you feel a little good, like, well, you can't help it. All you people have been around here long enough to realize you can't help it. You can help it. Nothing brought you here like magical emanations of a cosmic nature. That's one of the benefits of this, if you want to look at it that way, is you don't have to do it. It's only down in the city that you have to do stuff. Well, I have to be mad. I have to be a Presbyterian, whether I like it or not. True. But up here, you don't have to do it. See, down there, they can't come up here. But up here, you can go back down there. Ha! To say the least. All you got to do is sort of look off for a second and take a small little trip and a tumble, and there you are.